how I turned my boss's smear campaign into his public meltdown. The very first words my boss ever said to me were, "You're ambitious, aren't you? Good. Just remember, ambition is only dangerous if you forget who's in charge." At the time, I thought it was just some alpha male motivational nonsense. But 3 years later, that same man tried to destroy my entire career, humiliate me publicly, and leave me blacklisted in my own industry. Instead, I made sure he ended up screaming at a board meeting while security escorted him out. I then 28M worked at a mid-sized tech consulting firm. We weren't Google or Microsoft, but we landed big contracts, and our name carried weight. After years of grinding in junior roles, I finally scored a position as project lead on a multi-million-dollar government contract. The boss in question, let's call him Brad, was VP of Operations. Picture every stereotype of a power-hungry exec. Slick back hair, Rolex he flashed too often, constant, networking drinks at overpriced steakhouses. He wasn't incompetent, he knew the game, but he was lazy. He relied on people like me to do the actual work, and I did the work. My project team delivered results that put us ahead of schedule. Clients loved me, my staff respected me, and for the first time I felt like I wasn't just a replaceable cog. That's when Brad started noticing. At first it was subtle. He'd take credit for my slides during executive presentations. He'd forget to CC me on client emails and then reword my updates as his own. I brushed it off, telling myself that's just corporate politics. But then things escalated. One Friday, the CEO, let's call her Linda, called me into her office. She looked uncomfortable. "Linda, so, Brad tells me there have been concerns about your conduct. He said there are complaints." Me. "Complaints from who?" "Linda. He didn't name names, but things like inappropriate behavior with team members, cutting corners on deliverables." I felt like I'd been punched. None of it was true. My team loved me. Our deliverables were rock solid. I protested, but Linda's face told me she believed Brad more than me. After all, he was VP. I was just a project lead. That night, I checked LinkedIn. Brad had already started messaging some of my client contacts, setting up one-on-one chats behind my back. The message was clear. He was pushing me out. I spent the weekend cycling between fury and despair. Rage at Brad for lying, despair that nobody would believe me over him. But by Sunday night, I had an epiphany. Brad's arrogance was my weapon. He thought he was untouchable. People like that always get sloppy, so I made a plan. Step 1, gather evidence quietly. Step 2, protect my reputation with clients. Step 3, set a trap for Brad, one he'd walk into on his own. First, I started documenting everything. Every conversation, every email, every Slack message. I didn't accuse him outright, I just kept receipts. Example, when Brad sent me an email saying, "Just leave that part out, nobody will notice," regarding a compliance requirement, I replied politely, "Just to confirm, you're instructing me to skip section 4.2 of the client's requirements. I want to make sure we're aligned." Boom, written record. Second, I doubled down on client relationships. Whenever Brad tried to exclude me from calls, I'd follow up with clients directly. "Hey, I just wanted to clarify the details from today's meeting to make sure nothing gets lost." Clients appreciated the extra attention and started CCing me again. Third, I set bait. Brad loved looking smarter than others. So in meetings, I'd casually forget a detail or act unsure, knowing he couldn't resist swooping in to correct me, often with the wrong info. My team caught on and started saving chat logs where he gave contradictory instructions. My golden opportunity came 3 months later. We had a massive deliverable due, a 200-page compliance report for the government. Missing a requirement wasn't just sloppy, it could cost us the contract. I prepared the full report. Then I intentionally left out the section Brad had once told me to skip. I printed 2 versions, version A, full and correct. Version B, missing the compliance section. I emailed Brad both drafts for review, labeling version B as the latest. Predictably, Brad skimmed version B, barely looked at it, and said, "Perfect, send this to the client by Friday. And copy Linda so she sees you're finally taking my guidance." Gotcha. I sent version of the correct one to the client, and I saved Brad's approval email for version B the following Monday. Brad strutted into the exec meeting. I was there too, along with Linda and the CFO. Brad started his usual showboating. "Brad, thanks to my oversight, we delivered ahead of schedule. The client's thrilled." Right on cue, Linda's phone buzzed. She frowned. "Linda, that's odd. Just got an email from the client praising my name for catching a compliance gap. Apparently, your initial recommendation would have failed the audit." The room went quiet. Brad's face went pale. I calmly slid a folder across the table. Inside were his email telling me to skip the compliance section, the draft he approved missing that section, the final version I'd actually sent, complete with the client's glowing response. Me. I wasn't comfortable sending a non-compliant report, so I double-checked. Luckily, the client appreciated the diligence. Silence. Then Linda turned to Brad. Care to explain why you instructed him to skip compliance requirements? Brad stammered something about efficiency and trusting my leadership. It sounded pathetic. Now Brad was on the defensive, but I wasn't done. Over the next month, I drip-fed more evidence. Not all at once, just enough to raise eyebrows. Forwarded client emails he'd hijacked, Slack messages where he contradicted himself, budget spreadsheets showing mysterious adjustments. Each time, I phrased it innocently. Hey, Linda, just wanted to make sure you saw this since Brad's version seemed different. Meanwhile, I kept my relationship with clients airtight. They started bypassing Brad entirely and coming straight to me. The board noticed. The CFO noticed. Even HR noticed, since I'd been quietly CCing them whenever Brad's complaints about me didn't match reality. The final straw came during a quarterly review. Brad, desperate to reassert control, tried to throw me under the bus for budget overruns. Except the overruns were actually his steakhouse client dinners, filed under project expenses, and I had every receipt. When I presented them on the big screen, Brad lost it. He actually yelled, "You think you're smarter than me? You're nothing without this company. I made you." Linda's face went stone cold. Security was called. Brad stormed out, still screaming about backstabbers. Brad was invited to resign within a week. The official line was personal reasons, but everyone knew. Word spread fast in our industry. His reputation was shot. I got promoted. Linda personally apologized for doubting me and said, "Consider this a lesson in trusting the wrong people." Clients doubled down on contracts because they liked that I put compliance first. The ironic twist. 6 months later, I ran into Brad at a networking event. He was trying to pitch himself as a consultant. Nobody would even take his business card. He saw me, muttered, "You'll regret this," and slunk away. I don't regret it. Because the sweetest revenge wasn't just saving my career. It was watching him self-destruct with the exact arrogance he'd once used to threaten me. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to hear more interesting stories from Reddit.